UFC 312 is almost as bad as Sean Strickland's ground game. This card is absolutely cooked and is already shaping up to be one of the worst pay-per-views of the year.
Yeah, it's it's forgotten about because we have such a good card at UFC 311 this weekend. And then this card is just hiding behind it, and it's at Perth or Sydney. So they have lots of Australian fighters that could be put on this card. You know, we know Volk isn't on this card. We know JDM isn't on this card. We know Izzy isn't on this card. Those are probably your three biggest stars, and Whitaker, obviously.
Yeah.
But Whitaker's just injured. So you have four stars that you're not putting on this card. It's headlined by a South African, which is similar time zone. So I see that reasoning. Sean Strickland did not want to go to Australia, but they said, look, if you want a title shot and you can stop complaining on Twitter, you're going to Australia. We're shipping you to Australia, and don't talk about it. Also, the reason why no one wants to fight in Australia is because the taxes are absolutely insane. So you pretty much make no money, which kind of sucks.
And also the time zone.
Yes,
it's a tough fight because it's like 16 hours, so it's like a weird.
Yeah,
you have to show up to Australia so early to get adjusted to the time zone.
Australia is nice though, so
yeah, it is nice there. But yeah, this is a pay-per-view card with only 4 ranked fighters on it, and 2 of them are women.
So far,
we have 2 male ranked fighters.
Are we like, if we go down the card, there is some more. I swear there was more ranked fighters somewhere.
No, there's not even like 15th ranked flyweights, 15th ranked women. How many fights do we have on here?
Are we cooked? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fights so far. So probably 3 more to be added.
Get 2 or 3 more.
What's going to be added though? Like I can't think of anything that's in the work.
My biggest thing is like one of the biggest Australian fighters that has been real popular over the last year, Steve Erceg, is fighting on a fight night a month later. Why is he not on this card?
For sure.
Why is a guy like Steve Erceg not on this card?
And Dan Hooker? Dan Hooker hasn't fought since 305.
Yeah.
And at 7 pay-per-view difference, you should be turning around for that.
Maybe a guy like Gaethje or one of those guys doesn't want to fight in Australia.
Yeah, I could see that.
I actually just think it has to do with fighters not wanting to fight in Australia.
For sure.
But then it's like, if you're the UFC, why are you coming back so quick? I think that was why we had so many Australian and New Zealand fighters on the Perth card, was because they hadn't been there in a while.
Yeah.
But then when you're back 8 months later, it's like, well, we already fought in front of our home crowd and made no money.
Yeah.
Why would I want to do this again?
Yeah.
That was my last fight. Now I'm coming back here.
Yeah.
So I think that they just had too quick of a turnaround. I think it's a different story if you have a Volk on this card.
True.
I think then you have more incentive for these other guys to go and fight alongside Volk on this card.
Yeah.
But because you already just had a card 8 months ago, the timelines just also don't line up great because you have fighters who have already fought since then.
Yeah.
And
the big problem with this card is there's not enough quality matchups on this. Right now, listed on the UFC website, the third fight is Justin Tafa versus Taliesin Teixeira, which isn't a high quality fight, and it's not a good matchup.
There's no skill between these two guys.
And then further down the card, you have Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato, which again, there is no quality in that fight. Jimmy Crute is not a high level light heavyweight. I think this could be a fun fight. It could be something that Dana's like, I told you so. It's such a classic I told you so fight from Dana, where everyone's complaining about it being so high on the prelims, and then it's a banger, so he gets away with it. But this type of quality should not be put on a pay-per-view in a different country. If it's a Vegas fight or if it's, a US pay-per-view, it's a little bit different because they're there all the time.
Yeah.
There's going to be some pay-per-views in Vegas that are not good, or at least lower level. And all the Canada pay-per-views are going to be relatively bad.
Yeah.
Right? So I can't complain about that. But when they're going to places like Europe or Australia or Asia, they should be putting together high-level pay-per-views because they're not there that often.
Well, this is a certified fight night.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what happens when you were so successful with 305, and then you get greedy, you do it again. And first off, you have none of your big name Australian or fighters from New Zealand are on this card. Your biggest name that is from New Zealand or Australia is Justin Tafa.
Yeah.
That is your biggest name.
Yeah.
That is your selling factor. That's your hometown hero right now is Justin Tafa.
And it's not even hometown, it's New Zealand.
Yeah. He's your biggest Australian fighter, Jimmy Crute. We got Jimmy Crute, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's it.
Maybe Tom Nolan.
Yeah, Tom Nolan. Jack Jenkins maybe, but like those aren't big names yet.
Jack Jenkins is my boy.
They're probably going to be in the future. They're going to be good fighters, but not yet. They don't have name value or star power. So let's talk about which of these fights are you most. There's not a lot to look forward to, but which of these fights are you most looking forward to?
Well, there's a few fights on this card that I'm looking forward to, but like obviously it's a pay-per-view, so there should be more than 2 fights I'm looking forward to. Obviously, the main event I'm kind of looking forward to. I don't know if I needed to see this fight again, but that's what happens when you have such a close fight and where Strickland lost the belt, where he was robbed. And at the time, I believed he was robbed. But I just don't really have the same desire to see this fight just because I'm so confident in what Drickus can do right now. And I'm just not as confident in what Sean can do right now. Obviously, everyone knows how much I love Zhang Weili, so I can't wait for her to fraud check Tatiana Suarez.
That's a risky fight, dude. It's
a tough fight.
I'm worried.
But it's the fight you have to make.
Yes.
I'm excited to see Jack Jenkins fight Tsuruya. I'm excited to see him fight. And then obviously, my number one GOAT, my queen.
Wang Kong.
Wang Kong's making her comeback.
That's fast. Bruna Brazil. Isn't this the same chick she fought last time? I swear it was Brazil something.
Who knows?
Or Buena something or Silva. Every Brazilian fighter has like 5 names to choose from.
Yeah.
It's like when you're booting up a game and they give you 5 options to choose your character. And it's just,
Yeah, so there are fights I'm looking forward to, but like I'm looking forward to Jack Jenkins, Ray Saruya.
I think the most intriguing...
Tom Nolan and Wang Kong.
I think the most intriguing thing on this card is Alexander Topuria making his debut.
Ooh.
Arguably, that's the best thing to happen to this card because Topuria's brother is only 5-1 in MMA, and he has taken a KO loss earlier in his career. Other than that, he hasn't been too active. He's been mainly coaching Topuria. Obviously, he's a massive part in their training camps. He has a very similar style to Topuria. He's a bantamweight, so he's one weight class lower. He's going up against Cody Haddon, which is no fraud. For a first fight UFC fight, this is brutal.
This is tough. The UFC's like, prove it, bro.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm very surprised they're not giving him a nobody. I think they should have given him a complete layup to build up some confidence, but they're like, here, Cody Haddon, screw it.
Yeah, so like this card outside of the top 2 fights really gives UFC Fight Night Paris. It's really just gives off those vibes, and then you just throw 2 championship fights at the top of it. It is a fight night with championship fights at the top. This is closer to a fight night than a pay-per-view.
I would agree with that. Yeah, it's just they think they can get away with a bad bad pay-per-view. Sorry. If they have 2 title fights.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
This is literally UFC no chain right here. But there's no Diego Lopez versus Ortega.
So true.
Even where is a guy like Tai Tuivasa?
Bam Bam.
You add a Tai Tuivasa fight to this card. You add the Steve Erceg fight to this card. And you go and put Dan Hooker on this card.
It's good.
It's an awesome pay-per-view. You have Dan Hooker in the featured fight. You have Steve Erceg in the second fight. And you have Tai Tuivasa kicking it off.
Yeah. Then it's pretty much a kind of a reboot of what they did earlier in the year.
That there is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know what? And honestly, you don't even have to put Australian fighters. Just give us some ranked fighters. Yeah. Honestly, that's all we can hope for.
It's funny that Drickus is back to Sydney or back to Australia.
Yeah,
I forgot that he was the one who's
his home turf now.
Yeah, literally, he's really dog walking Izzy.
Like we might not even see any shoeies on this card.
No,
because there's 3 Australian guys and they might all lose.
Yeah. Jack Jenkins is bringing it home for us.
He will.
He'll do a shoey.
100%.
So what do we think about Zhang Weili's chances against undefeated Tatiana Suarez, who is the number 1 contender? So this was the perfect fight to make. Yeah. Super hyped up. I've seen a lot of people saying that Zhang Weili's reign is over. I mean,
obviously, being maybe Zhang Weili's number 1 fan, I think that this is her toughest. This is such a tough fight for her, and obviously, in terms of women's MMA, it's also so tough to go on this long win streak because of the lack of finishing ability.
Yeah.
With most fights going to a decision, it's 5 rounds. Anything can happen in those 5 rounds. It's going to be a tough fight. Tatiana Suarez is so good, but I'm obviously going to lean Zhang Weili.
Yeah.
I think that she is going to have that championship advantage. And Zhang Weili's lost the belt before. She's not like some perfect champion. So even if she does lose it, she could go and get it back.
Yeah, I do think she has a long career ahead of her still.
Yeah.
She does feel like she's still improving in each fight. The last fight against Yan Xiaonan was 12 pay-per-views ago.
Wow.
That is insane. I would love to see her turn
Book
around
this,
faster.
Book this girl more.
Yeah.
Dana.
I don't know what it is, you know? Like,
Yeah.
what's the reasoning? I know with time zones, China, like, is probably on a completely different time zone than the US. So having her on Australia, which is closer, is better. But it just doesn't make sense to me why they're stagnating these divisions when you do have decent competition in that top 3 of most of the women's divisions. Even in the women's bantamweight now, you have Kayla Harrison, who should be getting that belt literally at any point. They could add this to that card.
Honestly, do it.
Yeah.
Like this just needs something.
It needs something.
Life. This card has no life to it.
Yeah. Tai Tuivasa, Steve Erceg, and then Dan Hooker. That's what they need on this card. And there's your top 5 fights.
Exactly. And even if we don't have a Dan Hooker featured fight, just give us some competitive fight. I know like this could have been a perfect spot for JDM versus Leon, you know, and I know that that's going to be London, but this was a perfect spot for JDM to come back.
Yeah, maybe it was too soon for him. Maybe he's still injured.
Too soon. This guy just doesn't fight. He's made of glass.
That's honestly so true.
Any other thoughts? Like what are your kind of early, in terms of the main event, like early kind of breakdown prediction real quick?
Yeah, I think Dricus is going to be even more dominant in this fight. I think he's going to have something to prove. Sean Strickland, I don't see him being able to add anything to his game. Maybe he'll be more aggressive because it does feel like he always has a lot left in the tank at the end of 5 rounds. You always see him do something crazy at the end of 5 rounds. And you're like, where was that in round 2 or round 3?
Ditch the teep.
Yeah. And also, like we've talked about so much, Dricus is improving a lot. And I think he's proving a lot of people wrong. He's gaining so much confidence, believing himself. He can beat one of the best middleweights ever in Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker and Sean Strickland. So there's 3 big wins. Strickland has been facing Paulo Costa.
Yeah.
Which isn't doing much for your legacy.
And it was a split decision versus Paulo Costa.
Yeah, and by nature of how Sean Strickland fights, it's always going to be a close fight. So even if Sean Strickland has 2 good rounds where you think he wins, the judges at Australia are awful.
Oh.
So
no, just scrap this card. If it's the same judges, scrap it.
You have no idea what they're thinking, especially in this main event. So we'll see how it goes. I'm curious to know what you guys think, if Sean Strickland actually has a chance against Dricus this time.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Go down to the comments. Are we being too harsh on this card? I don't think we are, but let us know. While you're down there, make sure you guys are liking and subscribing. We hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
See ya.